Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this podcast, The Next You, your podcast for personal development and purpose. My name is Peter, and if you like this content, then please like this episode or subscribe to this podcast channel because in that way you help others to reach this channel as well. So my impact with my coaching can grow and you help others also getting some inspirations. Today I want to talk about leadership. Leadership is a particular topic for me. I've been a leader in an international automotive company for many, many years, in a national and international context as well. And usually leaders find themselves in a so-called sandwich position. And that makes leaders very uncomfortable. And what do I mean by sandwich? There are some expectations from the top, from the general company or from the superiors of the leader. And then there are the employees that you work with. Plus there are the peers, the people on your same level. And all of them, they create expectations to you. And it is challenging as a leader to talk to those expectations. And which is why we often start, if we are not able to handle it, how does it show up? It shows up in our life in the way that we go to work and we start wearing a mask. You enter the office, you wear the mask of your alter ego at work, and then you start acting in a certain way. And you might not feel very connected to what you do then. You might start playing this role more and more and more, and that usually deteriorates your work motivation a lot because you're not yourself. So I have a couple of things in mind to share with you what you can do to speak to this. So number one is know yourself well. I speak to this also in a different episode of my podcast when it comes to the 5 elements towards a meaningful life. But knowing your purpose and knowing your personality is absolutely important, especially as a leader, because you will be challenged from your peers, from your superiors, from your team, from all sides. If you don't know who you are and what you stand for and why you do it, you're going to have a hard time from the first day on. So put in the self-work because it is good for you and for everyone else that you have impact. And the great thing about being a leader is you have impact. You basically have an authority in your hand, so you automatically have a higher impact on people. And to utilize this best, be a good example and do the self-work. Now, when it comes to purpose at work, I want you to split it into 2 different parts. One is the macro purpose, the purpose of the company. Take a look how strong or how well informed you are about the purpose of your company. Why is the company there? And go a little deeper than just, let's say, selling cars or selling gasoline or selling cosmetics, but go beyond and what are the values and what is the deeper meaning of that kind of business. And then you can see how it connects to your personal purpose and how it motivates you, or where you might have a gap. And if you have a gap, that doesn't mean you need to leave the company immediately. No, it just means that you know, this is a point where I struggle. So I'd rather be cautious in engaging too much in areas where you need to represent something that you might struggle with, right? And if that doesn't work, then at least you can be very transparent about to what extent you identify with it and what not. So let me give you an example. You are asked to deliver a certain message to your team, and that is so not in line with your sense of belonging or with your purpose, because it's about, let's say, a new reporting line, and in your opinion this is creating not more trust but more control. So why not openly have a discussion with your team on how they perceive it? What creates trust and what not, and how could this be a gift for everyone or not? Because if you cannot change it, at least you can maybe change the perception about it. So be open and share it also with your superiors and say, Okay, I know this is not in my power now to change that, but at least let me give you my honest feedback and the feedback of my teams, or maybe the feedback of my peers, and tell you there are a lot of limitations that this system of reporting comes with it. And okay, we started implementing it, but they struggle with it, and then you have a discussion with your superiors on how you might deal with that. So be open and have the courage to be open, have the courage to be you. Especially as a leader, it is so crucial that you know who you are, and then you also have the courage to show it. Now, that was the macro purpose. And then there is the micro purpose, which is what you experience and what you create as a leader on a daily basis. So if you cannot show your principles that are important for you as a leader, then you will have a lot of struggle with motivation and purpose in your daily work. So the environment you work on, the strength you can show, the situations you create for you and your team, that is the most important environment that you are at work, because you see it on a daily basis. For example, let's say you do not identify at all with the purpose of your company, which in the long term might be a good sign to think about a different job. But let's say, okay, maybe you don't identify with it, but you created a surrounding where you can use all your powers, all your strength, and you can have a lot of personal impact to other people. Then this might be a very, very good way of becoming motivated. So that's why this macro and micro purpose, the bigger and the smaller one, they are very, very essential for you getting out of the sandwich position and just creating some motivation. If the more important one to me is the micro one. So your day-to-day experience need to be strong, need to be connected to yourself, to who you are as a leader, and that you need to find purpose there. If that doesn't take place, you will have a very, very difficult time. Let me give you an example. I had a client and she changed positions. She was in a big corporation and then she changed to a smaller company that was helping cancer patients, finding people that can make donations, blood donations and so on, to cure their cancer. So the macro purpose is awesome because you're saving lives, but the micro purpose was not, because she was in a terrible position. And so, yeah, if that work environment is not good, you will suffer. The last thing is values. And let me talk a little bit about how values show up in companies most of the time. First of all, values are treated as a kind of business tool. Okay, it's important to have values. So the management sits together and will say, okay, now let's create values, and there are good intentions around it. But then what? Then there is a marketing budget assigned to values, and that's how the values will also show up to you and to your team, to your peers, and so on. And that means, there are some good-looking slides, nice-looking posters, PowerPoint presentations, or video messages from the top that will explain you what the values are in a company. I had an example where a board member came in a suit, and then he put over his shirt, over his white business shirt, he put a T-shirt with the slogan of the value he was representing, which looked obviously more than funny. And then he was holding a speech of a couple of minutes about this. And then you saw him going off stage, taking off this T-shirt again. So he's back in his white business shirt and moving on. What is the problem with this? Because although what he said at that moment was all right, but you could see that there's no behavior change. And that's how values will be understood by people, by behavior change. And this is so important for you as a leader and in your sandwich position. Show up in the way that you want others to show up as well. You are the example. And if there are company values, or maybe you even have department values or team values, show up and think about how you need to show up to represent those values. Values are measured in behavior and not in internal marketing budget and how many presentations have been given. They are completely without any effect if no behavior change is there. So, again, have a conversation with your superiors, peers, and team about what kind of behavior would be helpful to demonstrate values. Maybe even your personal values, or maybe the values of your team. It doesn't matter on which level you have it. But have that conversation, because then again you can create a daily environment in which you as a leader can thrive because you know how to represent your own values. And there are not those unspoken misunderstandings between superiors and your team and the peers and so on. So this is about sandwich position, being confronted with expectations from your team, leaders, and peers. And I'd said, know yourself and know your purpose. Connect to your authenticity and have the courage to show it. And think about the values and how they show up. Because those things will help you to, let's say, not to better connect to the forces in the company that create the sandwich position and have the courage to be you. So in the end, ask yourself this: how do you want to show up? How do you want to show up on a daily basis so that you show the best version of yourself? If you can answer that on a daily basis, then you really work on becoming a very authentic leader. And in leadership, it is about courage and how to show up on a daily basis. So I hope those were helpful insights for you. And again, leave me a like, leave me a comment. I'm curious in how you're approaching this as a leader, and if you sometimes come into the office and wear a mask, play a different role. And there's one more thing to share at the very end. Imagine you have already quit your job, but there's a remaining period of a few weeks where you are at your job. And in that context, you will behave differently because suddenly some pressure is lifted off your shoulders and you really tell your opinion about, I believe this is right, I believe that is wrong, I want to change this and that, and so on. You're somehow a little bit more disconnected to everything because you have quit your job, but you remain, let's say, in your job for another month. Why not always showing up like that? So it doesn't mean that you walk around like someone who's crazy, but maybe you have in that moment more courage to speak out what you really think. And maybe this kind of input makes you think a little bit on how you're showing up and create a little more courage in really speaking out on what you stand for. I can just tell you others will highly appreciate it. So that's it for now. I hope that helped you in your leadership role. Tell me your feedback about it, and I'll see you here next time. Take care. Bye.